Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. I back to Madam Umi Zakia and Dr. Manga. Today, I'm Alya Aqilah will be presenting my action research entitled The Effectiveness of VocAR to Improve Year 2 IBNU MAJAH Vocabulary in SK Tajiring. In today's ever-changing world, English language has been placed to be one of the important language in communication as well as the main medium of instruction in education worldwide. Ministry of Education has placed the importance of mastering English language and has highlighted the need for students to excel in this language in the primary school year. In order to reach this aim, mastering vocabulary is one of the major factors in acquiring English language. According to Nation in 2001, vocabulary is one of the most important components in learning English. As we all know, vocabulary has much effect on other English skills such as writing, reading, speaking, and listening. This is supported by Mukoroli in 2011. That stated, without some knowledge of vocabulary, neither language production nor language comprehension will be possible. That means language comprehension and production will be hampered because of the lack in vocabulary. This shows that vocabulary play important roles in English language. Based on the researcher experience during the practical, the student ability to use English for communication is still at unsatisfactory level. This is mainly because of the pedagogy used by the teacher is in the form of less variations and teacher-centered. And this has caused the student to have difficult time staying focused during the lesson and could not understand the meaning of the word due to lacking of vocabulary. Here are some of the proof collected by the researcher during the practicum. The first picture shows that the student couldn't identify the meaning of the instruction, couldn't understand the instructions because they couldn't understand the vocab used in the instructions. And the second picture, the student couldn't match the picture according to the words correctly. And the third picture, the teacher used the initiative where using translation method, where the student first have to translate the words in bahasa, the vocab describing the picture in bahasa. Then, by using the translation in bahasa, the student have to translate it in English. However, the student still couldn't do it. In order to counter this issue, the teacher is expected to create various teaching strategy and meet the correctness of teaching method. According to Renata in 2009, the success of the student in learning English vocabulary depends on the strategy used by the teacher in teaching vocabulary. Because the method of teaching is a very important part which will influence to the student in increasing their ability to learn vocabulary. Engaging students in learning vocabulary can take a few paths, including using digital tools. Digital tools can be effective and meaningful. Therefore, this research aims to improve student vocabulary through VocAR. VocAR. VocAR is a short form of vocabulary and augmented reality. Augmented reality is a technology that allows for digital information such as videos, 3D models, images, or sound to be overlaid with real-world environment through smart devices such as phones, laptop, and tablet, in order to create wonderful and meaningful information. Hence, the purpose of this study is to find out the effectiveness of VocAR in improving Year 2 IBNU MAJAH student vocabulary. The objective of this research is to determine the roles of VocAR in improving Year 2 IBNU MAJAH student understanding of vocabulary, and the research questions of this action research attempt to answer of how does the use of VocAR improve Year 2 IBNU MAJAH vocabulary. The significance of this research is to benefit English language teachers in improving their performance in using digital tools, especially the augmented reality in teaching. The next significance is to improve English language learner vocabulary. The third significance is to influence the educator to take into account the importance of implanting more interactive tools like augmented reality in order to promote the process of teaching and learning. And lastly, to have more understanding towards student various style of learning. Now we will be looking into related past researcher. According to Gartner in 1991, who proposed multi-intelligence theory, stated that students possess different kind of mind, and therefore they learn, remember, perform, and understanding in different way. He also believed that human intelligence is complex, than work in only single way. Therefore, the researcher will be using augmented reality in teaching vocabulary in order to test whether the implementations of it is suitable with the student learning style. Next, it has been observed in recent years that although augmented reality technology is relatively new, the use of it in education has increased in the last 5 years. This is because augmented reality offers a learning medium that is close to the real world. According to Chiang, Yang, and Huang's study in 2014, they found out that the use of AR reported to increase academic success, while in a study done by Martin Gutierrez and Fernandez in 2004, AR can increase motivation for classes. Therefore, this past researcher has made the researcher believe that the finding of this research will be successful. And now we'll be looking at research design. The method employed was action research developed by chemist and McTaggart in 1988. It consists of 4 basic steps in a cycle, namely planning, acting, observing, and reflecting. In planning, researchers conduct investigation to identify the problems dealt by the teacher in teaching situations. And then, the researcher will come up with possible solutions in order to overcome those problems. In acting, the researcher will implement the planning actions to the teaching situation. While in observing, the researcher observes all activities occur and the effect of the action given during the research. And finally, in reflections, researcher evaluate the data collected along the step to improve the situations. Questions and sample for this research. The participant of this study was from class 2 IBNU MAJAH, where 3 participants were chosen. It consists of 2 boys and 1 girl. These participants were selected carefully through the result of their diagnostic test, then observation during teaching and learning process done by the researcher, me, and finally interview with the class English language teacher who had more experience with their student. Data collection instrument. There are 4 instruments used to collect the data for this research, and the purpose of using this instrument was to identify the validity of the statement written in this research. So, the first instrument used is document analysis in the form of worksheet to measure the progress of participant vocabulary score. Then, the researcher used observation form, where the researcher was helped by English teacher trainee, by peer who are English teacher trainee, to avoid biasness and require it for evaluations and reflection later on. And the third instrument used by the researcher is questionnaire, where the questions are mostly in several closed and open-ended questions. And lastly, interview, where it is done twice, where the first interview is done before the cycle has started in order to gather information about the student, and interview done after all the session in order to get student opinion about the method used in teaching vocabulary. Okay, in this slide, researcher will explain how the implementations of actions is carried out. First of all, the teacher introduced the topic of the day. After explaining the word verbally, the teacher implements VocAR, which is the intervention chosen by the researcher in teaching sea animal. Teacher first demonstrates on how to use it, and then teacher asks the student to follow what has done by the teacher, which means how the teacher use it, and then the student will use their memory to do it their own self. And then by doing this, the participant will able to retain and prolong their memories, retentions of the vocabulary learned. Next, the teacher will ask random question to the participant about the vocabulary they have learned based on the using VocAR, and then a worksheet is given to the participant in order to test their understanding and what they have learned. And in here I will play a video on how the student use the VocAR on their own in order to learn vocabulary. From the video, we can see that the student is the material used is student-centered, as the student are the one who carry out the process of learning and teaching. The module was done by the teacher, me, and in the module I include a few vocabulary themes that are related to Year 2 student supervised textbook. This part explains the collections and analysis procedure on the data obtained from the research participant. The data were collected and analyzed both quantitatively and qualitatively. Quantitative data were gathered from participant score, while qualitative data were gathered from observation form, questionnaire, and interview done with the participant. Now, let's look at the data collection first in the pink box. Okay, data collected were grouping in two groups, which are quantitative data and qualitative data. This is easier for me and my panel to understand. Okay, for quantitative data, the instrument used is worksheet, and the data collected from it is the student mark after the implementations of VocAR, which means the data is collected at the end of each sessions. While in qualitative data, the instrument used are observation form, questionnaire, and interview, and the data collected from those were peer memos for observation, data from the questionnaire itself, and interview transcription done by the researcher. Then, after the data have completely collected through the implementation process, the researcher has analyzed the data. Now, let's look on the second box in the blue color. For quantitative data, the mark obtained from the post-test of both sessions were analyzed by making comparison between both sessions of post-test. While for qualitative data, the content and checklists were analyzed in order to get the theme describing the challenges and opportunity of the study. Then after the researcher have done with the analysis the data. Next, the data analysis for quantitative and qualitative were combined in order to get the interpretations of predictions, implications, and the relations of theory in the study. Based on the graph, it shows the student score during session 1 and session 2. All of the participants has improved significantly in their vocabulary knowledge. As we can see in Daniel, during session 1, he scored 5 out of 12, while in session 2, he able to score 12 out of 12. For Ideal, in session 1, he scored 6 out of 12, and in session 2, he able to score 12 out of 12. And lastly, Ashumi, in the first session, she scored 6 out of 12, same as Ideal, and in the final session, she managed to get full mark, which is 12 out of 12. It shows that every participant has improved their knowledge about vocabulary and understanding in using VocAR. The finding of this research supported the multi-intelligence theory proposed by Gardner in 1991 earlier, that stated students possess different kinds of mind and therefore they learn, remember, perform, and understand in different ways. These interventions has helped to carry out and fulfill their style of learning because it includes different elements to help the participant in obtaining knowledge. The data collected shows that research participants were able to understand and identifying the meaning of the vocabulary using VocAR, which then improve and broaden their vocabulary knowledge. The finding of this research also supported the constructivism theory by Woolfolk in 2010. He stated that individuals construct their own cognitive structure as they interpret their experience in particular situation. In simpler meaning, as they were given an opportunity to use the intervention on their own, they were able to think and learn from their mistake in order to let them learn and understand better. The experience allows them to be able to understand, recognize, and use the vocabulary word correctly. And finally, the finding of this research has supported Omrad's study. That in his study, he stated that motivation affects what learners pay attention to and how effectively they process it. For example, motivated learners often make a concerted effort to truly understand classroom material and to learn it meaningfully that lead to the considerations how they might use it in their own life. The progress shown by the participants from session 1 to session 2 shows that they were motivated to improve and prevent themselves the correct use of vocabulary word with the help of VocAR. In conclusion, the research for this study was successful because the participants were able to improve significantly on their comprehensions of new vocabulary and as well as their interest in learning. The intervention also helps students to learn more vocabulary in fun learning environment, which eventually may help students to learn more effectively. The implications of this study are using the VocAR in teaching and learning process encourage the student to be active and motivated when they are doing an activity. The next implication is using VocAR enables students to learn the English vocabulary with the atmosphere of joy and happiness. The third implications, VocAR develops student vocabulary. And the third implications, Using VocAR activity, student prior knowledge, operate student thinking and restore their experience about this topic. The follow-up action were proposed in 3 aspects. The first aspect is curriculum designer and decision maker. They can produce a guiding material to equip teacher with the needed knowledge to use AR applications and other new applications that are related to modern way of teaching. Next, the curriculum designer should also consider providing a model of technique and activity to help teacher and student use this AR application in the classroom. The second aspect is for English language teacher. Teachers should consider the use of different technological programs and applications for vocabulary learning and teaching, especially in the age of technology. There are many technology outside there that needed to be discovered by the teacher. Next, teachers should also move from traditional method in teaching into modern strategy way, such as using augmented reality in teaching vocabulary, because it creates a new learning environment. And the final aspect is for further studies. This studies was limited to develop student vocabulary. The augmented reality application should be applied with other English skills and sub-skills such as in science and mathematics, as now they are using English language as a medium of teaching. And that's all for today. Thank you for lending your ear and your time listening to my presentation. And that's all. Thank you.